Hello everybody, welcome back to Indycar on Friday afternoon. My name is Gordon Ross, and today I'm broadcasting the show from Drumchapel, and you might hear airplanes flying over every now and again. I'm right under the glide path for the airport this morning. The subject for the show this morning really is to do with the media battle in the war, both for Brexit and independence. Most of you who watch any kind of television shows at all, or even listen to the radio in the morning, can't fail to have noticed that Scotland's NHS is being targeted by the BBC in an attempt to portray it as being just as bad as the awful situation they have in the English NHS due to chronic Tory underfunding. Now, the media war is how things are done in this country. There is no real democracy in the United Kingdom. Public opinion is manipulated by the state television company, the BBC, and ITV, which is also owned by Tory donors and others interested in right-wing politics. The media in the UK is effectively working for the government to make sure that we, members of the public, are actually getting angry about things they want us to be angry about, and not getting angry about the things which they're actually doing to us. So the point of this show this morning is to illustrate a few things that are happening at the moment, but the main one at the present time in my mind is the BBC has its blatant attempts to dig up any kind of dirt at all that they can find on the Scottish NHS, particularly accident and emergency figures. But bear in mind that the British Isles in general is suffering from the biggest flu outbreak for at least 12 years. And this is something which, although they actually planned for these things, they didn't plan for a flu epidemic that's happened this year. So the figures for accident and emergency have been artificially skewed in every part of the UK, not just in Scotland, by the fact that the flu epidemic has produced a lot of elderly people suffering from respiratory problems, those with already respiratory difficulties or heart conditions, and they have to be hospitalised. They take longer to treat, and therefore the figures, the statistics on accident and emergency treatment times are bound to suffer. But bear in mind that at the same time as the BBC is telling you this, somewhere around 85 to 90% of people who walk into A&E or limp into A&E are seen and treated and diagnosed and x-rayed and scanned and all the rest of it within 4 hours. That means there's only a very small percentage of people, 15%, who take a bit longer than that. So the BBC, as far as I'm concerned, just stop it. Stop trying to pretend that the Scottish NHS is somehow as bad as the rest of the British Isles. It plainly isn't. The medical profession in England is crying out at the moment that they cannot cope anymore. They can't cope with the numbers, they don't have the resources, and they are demanding that the government abandons this business of trying to reach targets that they plainly do not have the staff, the equipment, or the buildings to deal with. And moving on a little bit further from that this week into more about the media war, the BBC in Scotland has a flagship radio show in the morning called Good Morning Scotland. And according to the figures published themselves actually by the BBC and the other media watchdogs, the audience for Good Morning Scotland on Radio Scotland in the morning has now dipped below the level for shows like my podcast. Now, this podcast this week has pulled in audience figures. On a daily basis, it can be about 10,000, 20,000, but this week it's shot up to 53,531, which is a bit of a record for me, but it does show you that people are abandoning the propagandising BBC television and radio news, and they're going to other sources for their information and their news. They're going to Al Jazeera, they're going to Russia Today, they're going to even CNN and other foreign newscasters, because they know that the BBC is not reporting the situation in Scotland truthfully. It is picking little holes in it. It's finding pro-British, hardline British nationalists in Scotland to pretend to be injured or to pretend to be victims of the terrible Scottish National Health Service. And one of them was unmasked already, the man who claimed to have broken his ankle and to have been treated a week later after he himself decided he couldn't be bothered waiting and went home. Turns out that he is actually a British nationalist troll, and he has form for this kind of thing already, and he is a member of a very staunch, I think is the correct term, British nationalist troll site. So the BBC is losing all of its credibility this week. All of it is draining away as the Scottish people wake up and say, what the hell is this British Broadcasting Corporation doing now? They're basically doing down Scotland, talking it down and making it sound like we're as chaotic and crappy as the rest of the UK, and we plainly aren't. Also this week we've seen some unusual things happen. Yesterday Nigel Farage was quoted as saying he thinks now that there should be another Brexit referendum. Now this is a bit of a turnaround, isn't it? Because the Brexit referendum went the way he wanted it, surely. He must be happy with the fact that he's Brexiting, because that's what he campaigned for all of his life, and his entire party, UKIP, campaigned to drag the UK out of the European Union. And he's got exactly what he wanted, and now he's not happy. Why is he not happy? What's wrong with the Brexit that he campaigned for? Is he now discovering that his business interests and his investments are being hurt by the very thing that he has been moaning about for the last 25 years and he's campaigned for and won it? Now he wants to backtrack on it? So what's going on there? While we're on the subject of the media, I found it hilarious this week to discover that Virgin Trains had discarded trying to sell Daily Mail newspapers on their intercity train services, and they publicly said that they were dropping the Daily Mail. They weren't going to keep it on sale on their trains because nobody read it. In fact, they said that they had difficulty selling 4 copies a day on their trains, and it just wasn't worth having it in stock. But immediately the Daily Mail comes on and says that this is censorship. Now, forgive me for saying this, but censorship would be if the Daily Mail was banned everywhere by somebody. But a stockist who actually sells the Daily Mail can choose not to carry it if it's not selling. It's like any other printed newspaper. If you don't sell a lot of them and you're a retailer, you'll stop stocking it. It's not censorship at all. And besides which, if somebody wants to read the Daily Mail, all they have to do is go to W.H. Smith at the railway station and buy one and get on the train instead of getting it for nothing. So again, another load of nonsense from the British nationalist media. And to be honest with you, I think nobody with any kind of intellect buys the Daily Mail for news. I mean, if you do buy the Daily Mail, you buy it probably for the television or the gossip or the jokes or the comics, but you certainly don't buy it for news, because all it does is pander to people's racism, the right-wing xenophobia, and a very small market exists, particularly in Scotland, for that kind of news. There aren't that many xenophobic racists in Scotland, and those that are tend to read things like The Sun, if you can call The Sun something that you would read. So, interesting that the social media in Scotland is now really taking off. We've now got several new shows on social media. Independence Live has got a new constitutional show with Mark McNaught, Dr. McNaught, who has been running a very successful evening show every week discussing the new Scottish Constitution, and Mark has decided to model this on a new secular Scottish Republic. In other words, a non-monarchist, non-religious, civic country with a completely new constitution which is fair to everybody. And that show has proved massively successful right from the beginning. It started with an audience of 11,000 and it has maintained and grown that audience into the second episode. At the same time, we have Independence Live, who are transmitting news and events across Scotland every single day of the week. And if you go to Independence Live on Facebook, you'll find them. You'll also find them on YouTube as well. And as you know, my show is now available on YouTube, and we already have somewhere in the region of, I think it's 160, 170 subscribers to the Indycar channel on YouTube. And just before I came out today, I had a lovely sort of experience. I actually went to the petrol station to pick up some fuel, and while I was in, I came out and I found a chap who was sort of smiling at me. He'd come over from his car, and he obviously recognised me from the show. and he just wanted to tell me he thought the show was right on the mark. So as long as this show is right on the mark, then obviously I'm doing something right. And if any of you who watch the show on either YouTube or on Facebook or any other platform for that matter want to contact me with ideas for shows, then please do so. The wonderful thing about this medium is that I can create a show within about an hour from any subject that's given to me, if it's relevant to Scotland in some way, and particularly if it's a positive story for Scotland. Last night I was at a meeting with an old friend of mine from my my sort of scientific and engineering days, who was talking about an exciting new space project which he wanted to get my opinion on, and I hopefully be able to tell you a bit more about that once it gets to the stage where we've got something concrete to go on. But it's an exciting project. It would be a first for Scotland. It's a space probe mission which nobody has thought of doing before, and in a way that nobody has ever thought of doing before. And we hope to pull together some of our contacts from the universities in Glasgow and perhaps from Clyde Space in Maryhill, who manufacture satellites. We're hoping to be able to pull the threads of these things together into an actual mission which will go to another planet to explore it, and would be the very first ever purely Scottish built space probe to go anywhere ever. And we hope that we can bring this mission or this project to some kind of fruition and develop it into something real. So there are things going on in Scotland all the time that people don't read about and don't hear about. This was one such thing that we're just starting out embarking on at the moment, looking at the feasibility of it. There are other projects which I'd like to develop as well with other people. There are investors in Scotland who are looking to do new things with new firms, with new technology. I'm frequently contacted by people with ideas, and actually contacted by investors who are looking for ideas as well. So I can't do everything obviously on this show, but I'll always try and bring you any positive stories about the future of Scotland. And this show's purpose is to bring you news and to keep you up to date on what's actually going on. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is a media war. It's a battle of information now. And in the previous independence referendum, we had no weapons to fight back. We were facing the entire might of the entire British state. All of its media, every single newspaper, every single television and radio show was against us. In this case, we now have our own media developing. We have shows like this, we have shows on the internet. All over the internet there are shows. And many more people are taking to live streaming to bring news stories to you. There's also the option of listening and watching Alex Salmond's show on Russia Today, another platform for open discussion about Scotland, but about politics in general, and not being censored by the British press anymore. So in the media battle, we're beginning to make progress now. We also have the national newspaper, we have iScot magazine, we have Bella Caledonia as a magazine coming out of the national newspaper as well. So the Scottish, shall we say, indie media is beginning to develop now, and we can fight back. And Indycar's job is to push back against the lies and the misreporting of Scotland by the BBC. And I'll keep doing that as long as I'm needed. I always try and bring you the news in as unbiased a way as I can, but I'm also going to make points, political points, against the continued dominance of the British media in this country and the way it talks Scotland down with these terrible dirge-like news items about either stabbings, crime rates, poor health, bad health services, poor education services. We don't have any of that. This is all fiction created by British nationalist parties and British nationalist media who are trying to make us believe that we're a terrible country and that we have no hope. It's utter garbage. We all know it's utter garbage. Scotland is pulling away from the UK in a big way. Our economy is growing faster than the UK's. We have bigger exports per head of population than any part of the United Kingdom. And we have a terrific future ahead of us, as long as we don't believe the British media. So I would caution every one of you, anybody who's used to watching BBC television, ask yourself this question: who is telling me this story, and why do they want me to look at this? Why do they want me to think this way? And what is not being reported in this particular news show on the BBC? What are they not telling you about? What's happening in the background? What new laws are being brought in quietly while you're looking over here at some other news story, which is pretty much a non-story? So always ask yourself, when you're watching a news show, who's telling me this news, and why do they want me to know it? I'll talk to you later. I hope you all have a good weekend. That's IndyCar for this week. I'll speak to you again on Sunday, when I hopefully will have something new to broadcast. As I say, this show goes through material like nobody's business. It's very quick medium, the turnover is very fast. So if any of you have news stories to bring to me, please let me know after the broadcast. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Sunday. Bye for now.